gun speed with the only big engine Mitchell. This was in the mid-30s, and he wanted to design the ultimate you land there without braking in 300 yards, you're stopped. It's just like a touring aircraft with 1,000 and 300 Corsair and Bearcat. The Corsair is flown by Helen Wade, and the Bearcat is flown by the Fighter Collection's chief pilot, His Excellency, Beech. Beech is one of the strangest pilots in the world today, in the world of historical aviation at least. He's a very cool guy. There's no other word. Never says a word louder than another word, and is a kind of a poet in the art of and the poet knows how to put his aircraft right on the left wing of his leader. The Corsair was designed just at the beginning of World War II. The US Navy wanted to have a heavyweight fighter aboard the ships, the flat-top ships, and people of a small company named Transport designed two of the biggest aircraft that ever were designed, American, and it was a round radio engine, cylinders, lightweight. Very aerodynamic, despite its looks, it's a very slippery shape. And the main characteristic of Corsair is the inverted gull wings. Look at them and you see that the wings do come down first and then this engine was so big that the landing gear, to absorb the weight of the propeller, the diameter of the propeller, the landing gear would have been too high, too long-legged to be able to withstand the impacts on the carrier's deck. When you land on a carrier deck, you don't really flare, you just impact the deck. And so they designed the wings in this inverted W shape in order to shorten the legs and make them strong enough to withstand the impact on the carrier's decks. The end result was a single-seater, a long-haul, an aircraft designed for the very long navigations above the Pacific waters. It was the first aircraft, first military aircraft to be equipped with an ashtray and a little recess to put your cigarettes. At the time, the pilots were not told that smoking is dangerous, and so they were fighting a war with cigarettes and lighters, and in front of them, just above their knees, something like 50 gallons of highly flammable, of course, aviation gasoline. And by the way, normally a standard Corsair, when you climb in the cockpit, it smells gas. The aircraft flies, some people say it flies like a steam machine, and it looks heavy, but it's again. This is the ultimate expression of fighter aircraft designed around the piston engine. After that came the era of the jet. Then was the jets. But this is the most probably fastest and wildest piston engine fighter in history. The Bearcat, the philosophy of the design is very simple. You take the biggest engine possible and you design the smallest possible aircraft around it. And this was at the end of the war, 1943-44. And in fact, the Bearcat never saw service during World War II. After that, it was first used in Indochina by the French Air Force. That most of them flew them on ground attack aircraft, and then they were flown in numbers by the US Navy Reserve in the United States at the dark blue color. The American model is on this one. And when you're sitting on the ship, it's big. When you're in the sky and look at the ship, it's quite small. Historic aircraft pilots in the world, from Los Angeles, California, and they put the French color one, the Hawk 75 coming now from the right, is drawn by Steve's son, Steve Mitchell, racing pilot. Fraternity as a man who won Reno, the wildest air race in the world, many times. Steve Hinton, young Hinton, father Hinton, and I think it's 3 or 4 Strangely, the Curtises were designed by a designer who stayed by a man whose first name was Donovan. But his family name was Berlin. Berlin. And to say the truth, these aircraft were not considered as really outstanding in performance, but they were really outstanding in real life. Every morning they would go to fight, and they were seen everywhere. In Africa, in the desert, in India, and of course, among the most famous Curtises of all were the Flying Tigers one in Burma. Thank you very much. Of mercenaries would be the good word to describe them, because they had a contract and fixed fees per Japanese aircraft shot down, etc. Were shipped to the Far East, and they were split into 3 squadrons. They were exactly like the one which is now in front of us. The 3 squadrons where she heads are based here today. The period during which this aircraft was rebuilt, 15 years. And mission and present. This is called USAF. You have the map where they are based. They are now going to take off and we'll have them back in the sky above us after the Hurricane. 2000 RPM on the propellers. The same for the DC-3 and aircraft owned by the Austria-based collection of Red Bull makers. At the same time, run by somebody who's absolutely another aircraft, and they have the fabulous hangar 7 in Austria, where you can die World War II with it's one Douglas DC-3. sound of peace. Let me be a little bit personal, having flown both types in commercial service a long time ago. And the DC-3 is a miracle in flight. It's round engines, two radial engines from Pratt & Whitney, long wings, around a circular fuselage, housing up to 24 passengers in very reasonable comfort. The only thing compared to today is that, of course, it's not pressurized. DC-3, they invented a new type of job, stewardess. And this was the mid-30s, and the DC-3 was made to go from the Pacific coast, the west coast, to the east coast. In America, in 1936-37, started saying yes to the request for insuring aerial passengers because of this aircraft. And so the first DC-3s were not called DC-3s, but DSTs for Douglas Sleeper Transport. The DC-3 was the main liner. Some airlines in America call them the main liners because they were big, up to 24 passengers. And so they needed feeders to be able to go to what was not at the time already called hubs, but secondary airports, and whose business was to bring passengers in small numbers, 8 passengers up to 10 passengers, to bring them to the hubs in order to fill up the DC-3s. And this was the work devoted to the smaller Beech 18, which in fact is nothing but a smaller version of the DC-3 with round engines too, Pratt & Whitney's 985s, 500 horsepower inside. Invented literally air transport like we do it today again. Of course, today we have passengers by the hundreds in our mainliners, but we still have this duality between the mainliner and the feeder liner. The thing is that at that time the aircraft were designed without computers speaking. Intellectually speaking, they could last forever because they are so well built. The classic formations, aircraft are captained because there is one captain, you have a crew and not only one pilot on board. On the DC-3 is Mr. Breton Moser. On the first Beech was quite an adventure. And what a very important type. the Lightning too. A few moments ago, the Raptor, the F-22. The Lightning was designed by a real genius, one of the top 5 engineers in the history of aviation. Michigan-born, young engineer, and his admirers were saying that he was so gifted that he could see the wind, which is a good thing for an aircraft designer. His name was Kelly Johnson, Clarence Johnson. They wanted to design a very slim, twin-engine, long-range, heavy fighter in order to be able to escort fortresses, mostly B-17s like the one taxiing now, and escort them across long flights over either the Pacific or Central Europe, Germany. And they succeeded in designing a spaceship for the era. P-38, the twin boom wonder, whispering wonder, was equivalent to a spacecraft. With 2 Allison engines, V12 engines, they buried the pilot inside a very small egg in the middle of the aircraft, with both wings on the sides of the egg, and they wanted to be able to fly high and fast, so they took the engines and equipped them with turbo superchargers. The idea was to go very high where man cannot breathe anymore and feed the engines with compressed air, and hence the superchargers, the turbos. So they needed space to be able to put the turbos somewhere, and they ended up doing this boom design with in front of the boom propellers, then the engines themselves, and behind the engines a mess of tubes and circulating air, and the famous turbos on top of the booms. The thing was that if you want to compress air, you end up making calories by huge numbers too, and so they wanted also to bury in the booms and the big housings on each side. You want to be able to cool the whole thing. Logically, at the end of the booms, what do? You put the tail, the empennage, the twin tails, and the interesting thing, look at the P-38. The interesting thing is that before the P-38, only a year before the P-38, the same team of designers, Al Hibbard and Kelly Johnson, had designed a small airliner called the Lockheed Electra. And a bit later, you will see a Lockheed Electra. And the funny thing is that, dimensionally speaking, the Electra and the Lightning have exactly the same span to the engine. And their design, despite the fact that one of them is twin boomed and the other no, their design is roughly the same. It's a demonstration in using good recipes and making. P-38, that's the one I buy. Designed an airport which was Christians and the aircraft was built by the Los Angeles-based company, North American, another Argentinian company, headed by gentleman from Holland, Duxford. And the end result was an extraordinary fighter aircraft, which was finally flown to England, and the British test pilot flew it here in 1941 or 2, I don't remember. Very American, sorry about that, Caroline, sorry. And so, the Mustang was nicknamed. The first grand high-speed German fighter in the American arsenal during the war. We have a gentleman based in Los Angeles, north of Los Angeles, in Blenheim. The Manhattan Girls, talking about art and Tom Cruise. When you want. B-17s, the B-24s, or the Mustangs, or whatever else, were mostly 21, 22 years old, and they were listening to this kind of music. About the real life during World War II. Yeah, Sally's the aircraft, Ellie's the girl. Carbon out over 40 years in the air, kept in the air by Ali Sallingbo and her team. Absolutely unbelievable. Team with a very large aircraft. A lot of effort. Flown today by Mr. Quippers. No, it's not. No, P25J is down here. No, he's there with Ellie. Casting an eye. The junior duet, that reason that future wars were to be fought and win through the use of strategic bombing. And this is the strategic bomber. (1935). The checklist. You know, the idea of a checklist is to take care of everything before going to fly and during the flight. The checklist was invited 470 after the first one crashed with the controls locked on the mountain side near Seattle. And by the way, this made the fortune of Boeing.
Bernard, you run a medium-sized two-engine aircraft. What must it be like to try and keep a massive four-engine bomber in the air year after year after year?
Taking into account the complexity of the machine, taking into account the fact that this is
aviation spirit and emotion.
early 30s, end of 20s, early 30s, in terms of military aviation. Nimrods in the sky, one flown by Kinsey, another one by Mr. Holloway, and one Fury by Mr. Charlie Brown. It's really about can be used from the cockpit. They have a skip, and at the time when they have no brakes, which means that at the time when we were flying the aircraft, it was considered normal to have rusts, and there was a skid at the end of the fuselage to brake. That was only a small windshield in front of you and no glass cockpit, no enclosure around you. These were mounted to wooden propellers, fixed pitch propellers, which were two-bladed, which were very simple but at the same time very refined in terms of their design, because you wanted to have a propeller able to provide enough traction to be able to take off in a short field, because at the time airfields were mostly small places, and these propellers were not adjustable in that in between World War I and World War II. For a pilot, these aircraft are probably among the most interesting to fly, interesting and at the same time terrifying, because you lack what is going to become the norm in terms of cockpit, closed cockpit, retractable landing gear, flaps, and speed propellers, and this is going to come within 5-7 years, but it's beautiful largest aero club in the world. Absolutely elegant. The German equivalent of the Spitfire or the Hurricane, or an aircraft which is, in terms of military aviation, the Messerschmitt 109 is the aircraft which was built in the largest numbers in the whole history of flight. It was already built by Messerschmitt AG in Duxford in Germany. It was already built in 1936 and was used extensively during the Spanish Civil War. And it was still being built for production in 1945 at the end of the war. The 109 is a very small airframe, quite elegant, with small wings, and wings using, despite, for instance, the Spitfire has large wing with big wing area, while the 109 has a small wing, and to be able to fly at low speed and remain controllable, and not only that, but easy to fly for a young pilot. The 109 uses aerodynamic refinements, which were at the time not revolutionary, but quite up to date, like slats, automatic slats, which open in front of the leading edge of the wing. When you fly at low speed, the slats extend and they will direct the airflow on top of the wing and make it fly better. At the same time, at the trailing edge of the wing, you have flaps, which deploy, and the use of slats and flaps provide you with an aircraft flying quite well at low speed, and then being able to use short fields, an aircraft which is more usable. Messerschmitt was headed by one of the geniuses of aviation engineering and design, Willy Messerschmitt. And Willy Messerschmitt had not only thought about aerodynamics, lightness, which was an obsession with him, but also about a better way to produce this type of aircraft. Against the Messerschmitt 109, which were very, very advanced, designed for the period, at the beginning of the war was the Royal Air Force still had biplanes on squadron use, and this was the Gladiator. There are two Gladiators flying in the world, and here they are today in front of you. End of an era, the end of the biplane. It had some of the characteristics of the soon-to-come monoplane fighter. For instance, an enclosed cockpit with a sliding canopy. Redesign, the very biplane architecture. Of course, it was very limited in terms of speed, but it was very maneuverable because inherently the biplane is much more maneuverable than a monoplane. Fixed landing gear, when the Messerschmitt, for instance, has, of course, a retractable landing gear. Fixed pitch propeller. And here we have in the sky something reminiscent of what was the sky above the island of Malta. When Germany and Italy started fighting in that part of the Mediterranean. At one time, the Malta defense was done by 3 Gladiators, which became very famous in the history books, and if only because of the nicknames they were given at the time. Gladiator was nicknamed Faith, Hope and Charity. And Faith, Hope and Charity fought against the Italian Air Force and the Luftwaffe. And for a short period, of course, but for a short period, they were the only 3 aircraft flying in defense of the island before. Normally, the radial engines are air-cooled, which means that the air flowing during the flight, the air flowing enters the front of the engine and cools the cylinders before being sucked out of the engine bay by the rear part of the design of the cooling. And on this Mercury engine, there is a radiator which does not exist. A radial engine normally find the same arrangement on the Blenheim, which is now taking off with the same, using the same family of engines. As an annular radiator which circles around the front and help cool the engine. The Gladiator is a very sexy aircraft in that it makes a sound and not a noise, very purring and very smooth. And like the pilot as well, and it's a very quite easily and it's quite slippery. That is the function that during accidents, landing accidents. And here comes the period of the Battle of Britain. This was the standard Royal Air Force equipment in 1940. The Blenheim was, the Bristol Blenheim was light bomber, twin engine, and he's leading the formation, and there's only one Blenheim flying in the world, and this is it. Relegated to training purposes, but nevertheless, in some places they were still there. Have you read The Chocolate Factory, for instance, from Roald Dahl? Roald Dahl was an English pilot who flew with the Royal Air Force and in Africa, and he was flying a Gladiator when he suffered a tremendous accident in the desert south of Egypt, and this was in 1941. At the time, the Royal Air Force was manned by either professional air crews or reserve air crews. There was a period where recruiting went up to never seen before. Decisions being taken at the government level, of course. The idea was to bring a maximum of young men into the cockpits of either fighters or bombers or observation and reconnaissance aircraft. And the shortage was such that it became really a national operation. And the problem was to have enough pilots to be able to keep these aircraft flying. The fall of France gave the signal for a new policy within the Royal Air Force, which was to accept pilots from other parts of the world, and this was a period where, for instance, pilots from Eastern Europe, British pilots, joined the Royal Air Force in either being mixed with standard squadrons or within specialized squadrons with one nationality. The aircraft at the time were strangely painted, as the Spitfire, this Mark 1 demonstrates. half of the underside was black and the other half of the underside was white. And this was a good way to identify an aircraft once in the air as a friendly one. You will also take note of the sound made by these machines. The Blenheim was flown by Mr. Proudfoot. Here he comes. Proudfoot Jr. used to fly for the Antarctic organization, and the Blenheim was designed during the mid-30s as a Lightning bird, and this was a period when the Lightning bird was available with the top brass, either in Germany, for instance, where the German Air Force was very, very well equipped with light models from Dornier, Michael, and the English interpretation of the thing was cut again and brought back to the airframe and gives it a strange nose, flat nose. And the strange sound, well, of small baggages, which was done at the time. And here are two of the most famous one is a fighter, that's a one-wheeler with a white center. It ended with a Tomcat, which was a big Mach 2 swing wing jet fighter. And the other one is which was absolutely loved by its crews, the Avenger. This one of the Avenger is very nice little fighter, very guy. While the Avenger is like red blues compared to it. That has been flown very recently in combat by some pilots who scored victories. And a few months later, when came the big, huge Battle of Midway, where the Japanese Navy was defeated and lost lost its main force in terms of aircraft carrier. The Wildcat was the naval fighters used by the US Navy in the Pacific. Of course, at the same time, well, the French in 1938 had ordered, with Grumman, had placed an order for Wildcats, which were never delivered to France because of the armistice in June 1940, and the French Wildcats were taken over by the Royal Navy, and they repainted them and used them, and among the great pilots who flew Wildcats with the Royal Navy, was a gentleman who sadly passed away quite recently, and without a doubt, he can be described as and he was to be seen here in naval equipment and wrote history. He was the first man to land a jet on an aircraft carrier. He was, I think, the first man to land a twin engine aircraft. And at the end of the war, he was speaking fluent German. He had been a German student, German language student before the war. He became the Winkle groundsman. And that's the ultimate war. This is the top of the line, the ultimate piston fighter in history. After that, I've said something like that. We've said something like that about the. If you moments ago we had the whole car backwards, and this is the end of the line in terms of propeller-driven whole car, Sea Fury. It's run by Richard Grace and Mark Nick, as I said, mistakenly, months ago. And the Sea Fury was the last fighter made in this country to be propelled across the sky by a propeller and not by a jet engine. Otherwise, this is absolutely a perfect aircraft in terms of aerodynamics and controllability and balance. Some say it's been like a Bentley of the skies, or maybe an Aston Martin. By an incredibly complex engine, Centaurus, which has an architecture in terms of sleeve valves so complicated that it's even difficult to understand how it works, but it works. And these engines were the ultimate. Because after that, you could have made more powerful engines. The problem being to use all this power and put it in the propeller. Physically, at the end of the war, the aircraft like this one, like the Fury, and the Tempest, which was a land-based version of this design philosophy. Flying, when the jet arrived, suddenly everything became easy. They were trained in this kind of during the first Olympic Games, was flown these guys. They're absolutely out of this world. Earlier, and let's talk about it again because I love it. The DC-3, the Douglas, the Dakota, in military terms. This one is flown by an Norwegian crew led by Captain Andreasen, and they do fly this transport aircraft as well without any complex compared to the fighter pilots. The DC-3 again was born in, well, the story centers around a gentleman named Donald Douglas. And Donald Douglas was, he was specialized in boat design first. And then he was living in the East Coast, but he and his wife and his kid and his dog resented the New York weather, and they say, okay, we're moving to sunny California. And so they went to California at the end of the early 20s. Went to California, rented a former barber shop, and put a sign on top of it, Douglas Aircraft. And he had a capital of something like $800 of the time. And in 15 years he built up what at the time was the #1 aircraft building company in the world. Look at that. The good thing is that there are two in the cockpit because you need 4 hands, 4 arms to be able to pull this kind of turn on a DC-3. And so Donald Douglas set up a company making aircraft, and by the early 30s he was approached by gentlemen who had invented airlines in America and who said, could you build us all-metal twin-engine aircraft able to cross the whole of the American continent, North America, in 2 days? And he said, yes, but you'll have to fly at night. They said, yes, but do it. And he did it, he called it the DC-1, Douglas Commercial 1, then, well, look at that. This is the most beautiful air transport demo you can see anywhere, with a big, huge cargo door at the end of the aircraft. This would make a perfect truck of the skies. And Douglas built thousands of DC-3s, painted green, of course, and they flew everywhere in the world, including on over the Himalayas during what was called the hump, which was the story of bringing cargo, troops, equipment, ammunition, everything across the Himalayas in the Far East theater. After the war, these military aircraft were abandoned because they were used as military boats. And as I said, a small house somewhere with all the paperwork pertaining to the hundreds of aircraft, and they choose a number of them, 12 of them, and they had a voucher from the US Embassy in Paris for 12 DC-3s, well, C-47s, like they were called. The man in charge, they came and said, where is our block drive? Was going to make wine in New Zealand. But in the meantime, he had what? A wreck. This is a wreck. The wreck of an Electra Junior. And he rebuilt it. He spent years and years rebuilding it. He christened it Ilse, like the character of what's her name? Hero. Here he comes from the right. Of course, he's very shy because he's not an airshow pilot at all. He's saying, "Oh, I'm going to demonstrate it." And this is one of the most beautiful shapes you can see in the sky from this period. But you should use 29 inches and 1900 RPM instead of 2100 because it makes less noise, it purrs, and it's more gracious. Gear down, flaps down, gear down, flaps down. States that this is a very maneuverable transport aircraft. Normally now man should land the Electra and we should proceed to what is the high point in every Flying Legends air show, and this is it. The gentlemen, start your engines. The Balbo is coming. Your best expression of the nation's capability in terms of technique and industry. After element on the flying wheels.